Yeah, sure. Won't be long. Here we go. Good evening, guys, and welcome. Don't forget, guys, if you're listening on the radio, can you please put all your messages in the left-hand column? And if you're listening on podcast, I mean, you're right. Don't, I am in a really, really mess at the moment. I just got caught in the rain, so I'm all over up. So there you go, guys. But never mind. Okay. Um, yeah. So we're just kind of like trying to look up at the problem. Anyway, horrible weather here in the southwest of the moment. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. We have beautiful weather here. It's not, we live in one of the most sunniest places in the world, so it's a gorgeous day here, and I'm good.
Good, good, good. Tell everybody about yourself.
So I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My name is Virginia, obviously. I have been business coaching for a long time, and I recently just closed that business and moved over into some real estate investing and really kind of doing a big change in my life. I'm married with a dog and two cats, and I think our old cat was out in the yard this morning, so maybe three cats as of this morning. And that's kind of my life, and it's what I do during the day. And here I'm sitting here interviewing with you.
Why the change?
Why the change? Very few people ask you those questions, right? A big part of the reason for my change is I am putting my health first. And a lot of times when you run your business, your health doesn't come first. It comes second. The needs of the business come first. And so I really closed up that business to put me and myself first, and to get some of my health issues in check. And maybe I come back to it in 6 months. Maybe I come back to it in a year. I don't know. But right now it's all about taking care of me.
The trouble is, your health does come first because at the end of the day, I remember running the cleaning business and I used to run like, I used to kind of like run my business like 12 hours a day. I was on the go all the time. At one particular time, it came to a point I was in a car park in a local superstore and we were cleaning the car park out, and all of a sudden I keeled over and I had a stroke. So, the trouble is, we kind of like, we try to kind of like put others first instead of ourselves with our health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the trouble is, we put business first before anything else. So, what have you? What woke you up with for the change? Was it something like something came out of the blue, or was it just thought, well, I've had enough?
Um, I got sick with this thing called COVID. I don't know if you heard of that. I get
Yeah,
real, I get real sick with COVID. Not as sick as some folks. I was never in the ICU. I was never hospitalized, but I was sick, and the doctors thought at one point I shouldn't have lived. And I just after that experience, I just didn't want to open another email. I didn't want to take another call. I didn't want to, um, really spend my time making my next sale for my business. And the question became, why not? Why don't you want to do this? Why not? And COVID really reminded me what was most important. There's this book called The One Thing, right? What's the one thing? If nothing else matters today, what's the one thing that you need to get done? What's the one thing that you need to get done this week? What's the one thing? And that was probably the first time in my life I didn't call my mom. I wasn't really talking to my spouse because I couldn't talk. And the one thing that was super important to me was my health. Nothing else mattered. If I didn't have my health, nothing else mattered. And it was really a game changer for me to really look at my priorities and really assess where I was at and what I was doing. And I just that fire just never came back to me after I was sick with COVID earlier this year. And I said, something's got to change. You gotta. This might be your wake up call to shift some things around and see how you can do some things differently. So that's what I'm doing.
What was it like when you had COVID? What was it like? Because many people think, a lot of people died from it and suffered with it. But what was it like for you as a businesswoman, having COVID?
So let me, you ask as a businesswoman, but as a human being, I just want to say I've been through some scary stuff in my life, right? I survived an auto accident that should have killed me. I survived an illness many, many years ago that should have killed me. Like, there's all these like previous incidents in my life that have scared the crap out of me, right? This was different. This was really different. I really understood how people are dying from COVID. I didn't have some of the normal symptoms. Like, when you think of COVID, I think people think of folks just coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and not being able to sleep at night because they can't breathe. For me, it was the opposite. It was almost like I was drowning in my own lungs and didn't know it. I woke up on day 8 for me. So the first 5 days, I was great. I'm like, I'm going to be one of these folks that doesn't really get sick with COVID. And then it's like I fell off a cliff and it got really bad for me on day 7 and day 8. And day 8, I woke up, which is grateful that I woke up. But I woke up and I'm like, I'm not in a good space, right? And so I picked up the phone to call the nurse. We have a nurse helpline here for those that are sick with COVID to get
Yeah.
an assessment, right? How sick really are you? And one of the first questions she asked me was my name. And I couldn't tell her what my name was. I didn't have enough lung space in my lungs to talk. And it was at that point in time, I knew I was in trouble. I didn't know that my breath was that bad. I knew I wasn't feeling well. I knew my fever was high. I knew I'd had a rough night, but I didn't understand my lungs were that bad because I wasn't coughing. I wasn't coughing. And so she called 911 for me and we went to the hospital and they put me on oxygen right away and gave me steroids right away. And I stayed in the ER for the day. And what the doctor said to me was, you're stable enough. We are going to send you home with these meds and oxygen and you'll be okay. But I was supposed to get a home delivery of oxygen that night that never came. And so the doctor said, in order to survive, you need to be on oxygen. And I went to sleep that second night expecting oxygen, and it never came. The doctors and everybody said my oxygen was so low that night, I shouldn't have survived. And so I went back the next day to the hospital because I didn't have oxygen. And my numbers were not good. They were really not good. And it was some of the most scary times of my life because I didn't know, like some of the other times in the car accident and when I was in the hospital sick, I knew I was in trouble. I didn't know how sick I was until I couldn't talk with the nurse. And then I didn't know how scary that second night was until I talked to the doctor. And it was very clear to me that this is a very sneaky illness that can just basically suffocate you and you don't even know it. And I knew that that's how so many people were dying.
Hmm. Do you think the way you survived your accident and everything else and COVID and everything, does that does that come to a faith? Do you have a faith?
I don't have faith like other people do. I grew up Catholic. I grew up in the church. Um, I am very spiritual, but when it comes to those sorts of really scary times, I'm not turning to the Lord. I believe that the Lord has given us all of the necessary resources for us to utilize. And if we are smart human beings and utilize the resources the way that God has provided us, then we'll be okay. And so I knew he was there, but I'm not a spiritual being the way others are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
So I think at some level, yes, it helped me. Um, I'm not sure what allowed me to survive that night. I really, I look back and I should have died. Like I don't know why I lived and others don't.
Right, okay. So you survived, and thank the Lord for that. And and you're here now talking to me.
Mhm.
And what? So what do you do now? Do you go out and help other people now
With with COVID, with what?
with whatever you do with?
So, with the real estate investing, of course, I do. I provide homes for people to live in and handle all of the landlord stuff for our tenants. Um, when I say I do that, I also have people that help me. I'm not the one that's actually going and fixing the toilet like some landlords do. I hire somebody to do
Yeah.
that. I'm coordinating that to make sure that the folks that I am supporting have a good, safe home. And not all landlords are like that. And I just believe everybody should have a safe home to live in. And I'm a part of that. But a big portion of my time in the last 5 years has been dedicated to running a Facebook group that supports um, a chronic illness that is associated with COVID. There's a lot of long COVID folks in our community. I don't necessarily, they're not there to hear about what I've done and what I'm doing. It's a group of us that are coming together to try to learn together, to try to share experiences that we can all learn from. I spend quite a bit of time in that community, bridging the gap between what people need and what the medical systems can provide.
Do you think the medic? Do you think with your job now, what you do with real estate and everything, do you think that there is enough real estate or housing that's helping people to get on the housing ladder, or no?
I think they're in real estate. If you look at some of the richest people in the world, they have real estate investments. So there is enough within real estate to be able to do that, right?
How
Um,
about affordable housing though for
oh,
people who is not you know better off?
in America, the stats show that we're short 4 million homes. And we're significantly more short in areas that are what we call affordable homes, right? I'm working with a group of folks that are trying to get really creative on how we provide affordable homes. But where I live currently in the world, it is we don't have much affordable housing here. We don't. And that is a crisis, at least in the United States, but I understand it's a crisis in many parts of the world.
Well, there's a crisis in UK where I am,
Yeah,
and the trouble is, the trouble is, it's okay getting housing for people who are well off,
right.
but there's also people who is on the streets, and then some people, people will say, well, there's two things. One, they'll say, I don't say it because, but there's people who will say, well, if they want to be on the street, then you can't help them, let them live on the street. But I believe that everybody should have a home,
I do too.
right? And
I believe everybody should have the opportunity to have a home.
yeah,
Not everybody wants a structure like you and I maybe think of a structure and where we plant our roots and call it home. There's a lot of folks in this world that don't necessarily want all that. But I want to give everybody the opportunity to have a home, to have a safe
yeah,
place that they can that's one of the things during COVID that really shook me is I didn't feel safe in my own home. And everybody should feel safe. When there was a time when I was a young adult, I lived in an area that was between two gangs. And regularly I would have to get on the floor as we knew there was these gangs shooting one another, right? And I didn't want to
hmm,
be caught in between. And nobody should have to live like that. Nobody should
no,
have to
no,
fear going to the grocery store or fear eating dinner at their own table or have a table to eat at. No, nobody should do that. Um,
no,
and it's
no,
a big problem. It's a big world problem
yeah.
for sure.
But the trouble is, though, on the other hand, you know, there are people over in the United States who has been in the services, who's been to war, right? And that because of what's happened, of disabilities or they got injured and everything, they are being thro- thrown out of the whatever army or the forces, and I'm not saying literally thrown out, but
Yeah.
being asked to go. And because of that, because they had their homes when they were in the forces, but they have been put on the street. They've been made homeless. I've talked to people, loads of people on here. And I reckon it just makes me sick. You know what I mean?
I do. So Colorado Springs, you might not know, is one of the largest military populations in the world. So in the United States, we have several areas with large military populations. Colorado Springs is one of the largest. We have the Air Force Academy here, and then we have several what they call American military bases here, and a good portion of our population is military. And so I'm well ingrained in the issues that the military have, especially those that are retired or have been medically, as you say, kicked out, relieved of their duties. The issues that they have, and it's not only them, but it's their families.
Mm,
I've got a girlfriend here who's struggling, who lost her spouse in the service. He never came home. And it's been 8 years and he never came home. And she's still posting um, really pictures of her heartbreak and how she just can't move forward. It's not just the military, it is their families too.
yeah, 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 yeah. I know, I know, and the trouble is, why? What's the problem with the United States government? I can't understand it. What's going on over there? It just seems like they don't care. You got wherever you go, it's you got wars going on between different, cities and towns and everything. I was speaking to some, but we've got one of our reporters. We have like a person who comes on every month, and he keeps me updated what's going on over in America. and he tells me there's some places they're fighting against each other. They're looting. They're doing loads of things. What's going on?
I don't know in in the places that I have lived, and I lived for a long time in Europe. The United States has always had their issues. This
Yeah,
country was built on fighting the North and the South. It's always had their issues. I think sometimes, like during World War II, we were distracted between our issues and the world's issues, but we've always had our issues in the United States. I think the media might be covering our issues a bit different. I think maybe people are being a little more vocal than maybe they were 10 years ago, but to paint America as not having any issues, that's not the case. We have our issues like every other
yeah, yeah,
country in the world. They're just different. Our issues are just different.
yeah, yeah. With you, with yourself. So, what are you up to at the moment? And tell us if anybody is listening now and they want to get in contact with you and find out more information about you, how can they?
They can contact me via Facebook is really the place I spend a good majority of time. I don't think I'm that hard to find. I know there are other Virginia Phillipses that are out there,
Yeah,
but not a ton. So you can look me up via Facebook. I work a lot with the Facebook communities. I know Facebook doesn't always have the best of reputations, but they have been very good for the mission that I am really spend most of my time doing, which is helping the mast cell activation syndrome community um, get a foothold in this world and get doctors to know what it is and to get patients that are suffering from this the help that they need.
beautiful. Well done. And do you have a website at all?
Not anymore. Mm-mm. Nope, that closed with my business a few months ago because that's something that I would have to maintain. No, I don't. I am, I'm on the social medias. If people want to find me, that's where they can find me. They can find me in LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook is really where I hang out most of my time on social medias. I know there's a lot. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Snapchat. I'm not on some of those other things. But if people want to find me, that's the
When
best.
I
And
when I when I mentioned your when I said have you got a website, you smiled and laughed and what was why was that? Is it because you're glad it's gone?
I'm glad it's gone. I don't have to maintain it. I don't have to worry about SEO. I don't have to. It's one more. When you have this ability to declutter your home and you have a closet that's got a few too many items in it and you remove those items from your house and now you have a closet that works better for you don't miss those items, right? That those websites, those things served me really well for a number of years, but at the moment I've cleaned out my closet and I've moved that off of my things to do, things to have to care about so that I can put my health first and that I can put what matters most to me first. And managing a website is not it.
Beautiful. Okay. I'd love you to come back again and talk to you some more. But in the meantime, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for your time. Thank
All
you.
right. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye. Yeah.